Welcome to The Thriving Mama, the podcast that teaches you not just how to survive, but to thrive in motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. I was recently researching statistics about overwhelm in moms and found out in Motherly's 2023 State of Motherhood survey, completed by nearly 10,000 moms, they found an alarmingly high 93% of moms reported being overwhelmed and burnt out. This was largely attributed to moms shouldering the majority of childcare and household duties, often in addition to working some kind of job. So in this episode, we'll cover exactly what overwhelm is, how it affects your body, and simple strategies to overcome overwhelm in the moment. I've launched this podcast to share my knowledge and experience, but I know that real change comes from action, not just information. For personalized guidance, I'm offering podcast listeners a free 20-minute Thriving Mama Glow assessment call. We'll evaluate your situation, and even if I'm not the right fit for you, I'll provide useful resources and support to help you on your journey. You'll find that link in the show notes. The statistic I mentioned earlier is a reflection of how difficult it is being a mom now. You know, when I talk to moms, I hear certain words from the get-go immediately. And many moms say the same thing. It's overwhelm, it's stress, it's, lacking energy, it's, struggling, all of those words. And a lot of that can be attributed to overwhelm. From birth to adulthood, raising and nurturing kids is an incredible and amazing, yet it's extraordinarily challenging in the modern world that we live in. Moms are often responsible for a huge share of all aspects of childcare, not to mention household, family, and work obligations. It's no wonder that 98% of moms report feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. And I think, anyone who is a mom who's listening can probably relate to that. Even people who seem to have it all together, when you talk to them behind the scenes, mention that they experience overwhelm. So know that you are not alone. We all experience this. And I always like to tell people, social media is often fake. All you're seeing is the positive highlights of most people's lives. You're not seeing, what they're actually really going through on a daily basis. So remember that. Remember that we are all human and we're not alone. So I first want to talk about what overwhelm is, so we're all on the same page. So the actual definition of overwhelm, there are several. And so the first one is to bury or drown beneath a huge mass, which I think we can all relate to that. Sometimes I feel like it's like the weight of the world that I'm under. Give too much of a thing or inundate. So, just being a mom, getting everything piled on top of you, everything, all of the daily, things that we have to do. It gets overwhelming because it just compounds and piles up. And the last one, I think, is the most profound. It's to defeat completely. I think we've all been there. You get up and you're busy and there's chaos around the house. And, it's just, you feel like you're starting your day in that whirlwind. And then everything throughout the day just keeps on compounding. So I think we've all been there where we have just felt defeated and felt like we didn't get anything done during the day. And we, everything that could go wrong does go wrong. I know we have all been there. Every mom has experienced this. And it kind of leads me to my favorite analogy that I like to talk about when I'm talking to moms is I feel like when they come to me to, if they want to work with me, I use the analogy of treading water in a hurricane without a life preserver, because that's exactly the way most of these moms are when they come to see me. They're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders with little to no support. They're overwhelmed and stressed and tired and anxious and irritable. Their emotional bucket is empty, causing them to react much differently than if their bucket was full and they had the emotional reserve and resilience, to just be, just happier and more balanced. And so something else that I think is important to understand, not just what overwhelm is, but also what are the symptoms? The symptoms are vast and they're all across the board. Things like anxiety and depression, irritability, fatigue, insomnia, difficulty focusing, weight gain, aches and pains, chest pain, panic attacks, headaches, and GI issues. Literally system-wide effects can be a result of overwhelm. But I have to tell you, the symptoms are a gift. They are telling you you're not honoring or caring for your body and yourself. And this is completely normal. We have been conditioned societally to think that symptoms are negative, but really, like I said, they are a gift, and it's a positive because it is telling you that you need to address what's going on. So what happens to our bodies when we are overwhelmed? Your nervous system is fairly complex. And so for simplicity, we're going to largely focus on the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS. And the ANS plays a significant role in the body by controlling various autonomic physiological processes, including those related to stress response and your overall homeostasis or balance. The autonomic nervous system consists of two branches: the sympathetic nervous system, or the SNS, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the PNS. And these branches work together to maintain a balanced state in your body. So we're going to talk about the sympathetic nervous system first. And this is the one that is referred to as the fight or flight or flee system, because it prepares the body for action in response to stress, danger, or a perceived threat. When activated, the sympathetic nervous system increases your heart rate and dilates your airways and redirects blood flow to muscles, which helps the body respond to challenges in the moment. Not what we want happening when our kids are running around the house all crazy and they knock over a glass that shatters into 100 pieces and we have to respond. However, chronic or prolonged activation of the sympathetic nervous system due to chronic stress or anxiety can lead to increased wear and tear on the body, and potentially resulting in fatigue and disrupted sleep patterns, imbalance in energy. And this is huge because it's one of the primary drivers of all chronic disease. And like I said, it's not necessarily what you want when your kids do something that like breaking a glass that you don't like. But, it is important because it's a normal mechanism. And the parasympathetic nervous system, or the PNS, is referred to as the rest or digest or tend and befriend side of the nervous system. The vagus nerve, which you have probably heard a lot about, is a key component of the parasympathetic nervous system because it carries the signals between your brain, heart, digestive system, and lungs, and it promotes relaxation, recovery, and energy conservation. And when the PNS is active, heart rate and respiratory rate slow down, digestion is enhanced, the body's energy is redirected towards restorative processes such as tissue repair and immune system function. And this is what we want engaged when we have to respond to that broken glass. So take a second. This is an exercise that I often have moms I work with do. How, and I ask them this question, how would you respond to that broken glass? And I want you to be honest. And I'm going to give you a little example in a second. So regardless of what you answered, you could have said you were calm, no big deal, you'd sweep it up, or, you might freak out. That's all totally valid. And I'm going to give you an example of what happened with my son a couple of months ago. It was very interesting because we were running out the door to a soccer game that I think it was about 45 minutes to an hour away. So it was early in the morning. We were rushing around. He didn't feel like eating, so he asked me to make him a smoothie. And so smoothie cup, for those of you who are viewing, it was about this big. It was huge. It probably held 24 ounces or more of liquid, and it was filled to the top, full of purple. It was blueberries. I put tons of blueberries and bananas and some protein powder in there and some almond milk and blended it up. He, in his whirlwind, not paying attention, went to grab it and just, didn't fully grasp it and dropped it on the floor. And as it fell on the floor, it shot not only across my kitchen, but across the whole house. So literally, I had purple smoothie on it. It basically landed in the kitchen and shot straight across it was about 20 feet. And it got all over the ceiling in the kitchen and the family room. It got all over the couch. It got all over a chair, carpet, curtains, my dog's bed. It got all over the kitchen, the floor where it landed. There was a massive puddle, but it was all over the island and it was all over the counters, like in the cabinets. It was everywhere. And instead of freaking out in that moment, which probably I'd say in the ballpark of 1.5 to 2 years ago, I probably would have started screaming and been really mad and frustrated and lashed out. But instead, I took a breath and just handed my son a rag and told him to clean. He started crying immediately because he thought he was going to get in trouble. And that's obviously a response that was ingrained in him and something that we actually work on, because in the past, I probably would have yelled at him for that, even though it was an accident. I feel badly that he responded by crying, but once he saw that I was calm, he stopped crying and just started cleaning. And it took us we were late for soccer, the soccer game. We were late for the kind of warm up. But yeah, we ended up having to take about 20 to 25 minutes to clean it all. And I couldn't even reach it all. There were spots on the ceiling that I couldn't reach. So my husband was coming home after us. And so I told him that I'm like, you need to get this, off the ceiling before it like cakes on. And so in that moment, I made the conscious choice to not freak out and not scream at my son. And just, move through it move through that moment. And afterwards we had a discussion. We had a discussion about, paying attention to things. And I acknowledged that it was an accident, but it also could have been prevented had he just been paying a little more attention. So we used it as a teachable moment. But like I said, had that happened in the past, I probably would have freaked out. And that's obviously, I think when that happens to us as parents, we're not proud of those situations. So I just want to illustrate that as the fact that we can change. We can make things better. We can make things better for ourselves and we can make things better for our kids. So that said, I want to give you some short-term strategies to help you overcome overwhelm or stress in the moment and engage your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can have more of a calm response to things that normally you might not be happy about or you might yell about as a mom. Okay, so the first one, I'm going to have you place your hand on your heart for 20 to 30 seconds. And you're just going to breathe in and out calmly. This releases oxytocin, which is the hormone of love and safety and trust and connection. It also directly engages the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve, directly calming you down. So this, you're going to breathe in a sense of safety and ease and goodness or any positive emotion into your heart center, which is going to pump the brakes on our very fast autonomic survival response or that, fight, flight, or freeze. And so even more, remembering a moment where you felt safe and loved and cherished, that really activates the release of oxytocin and your blood pressure will go down. Your heart rate is going to stabilize and you're going to have a feeling and a sense of calm. It's this technique is actually powerful enough to calm down a panic attack in less than 1 minute when it's done properly. So like I said, you're placing your hand on your heart for 20 to 30 seconds, breathing in, like I said, breathing in that sense of, safety, ease, goodness, love, all of those things. And then your inhale should technically be a little bit shorter than your exhale. So you can inhale for 3 to 4 seconds and exhale for 5 to 6 seconds. That's going to elicit that response the best. Another thing you might want to do is pause, shut your eyes and just take 3 to 5 deep breaths, preferably from your belly. And again, you want the exhale to be longer than your inhale. Like I said, an inhale count of 3 to 4 maybe, and an exhale count of 5, 6, 7 seconds. This also engages the parasympathetic nervous system breathing deeply into that heart center activates the calming branches of the nervous system and your body will relax. Something else to ask yourself if you're confronted with like different thoughts in your head that are distressing is ask yourself, is that thought or feeling mine? Because we are influenced by other people's energies, and something that's in your head very well may not be your own thought. It also might be something that is a trauma response or something that was passed on to you. And that you can actually acknowledge that and just say, I don't want that in my mind, or visualize a boot kicking it out of your mind, and you can get rid of it that way. We have these subconscious programs running in the background that were absorbed during our crucial developmental years from, ages 0 to 5 or 6 years old. So we are not always the architect of our thoughts. So that's a very important thing to recognize. And it can also help you diffuse a situation, because sometimes, like, especially if we're responding to our kids, you might like something that like your response might be something that your parents did to you when you were a child. And again, like I said, there's no judging. It's they did what they were taught to do. And then they basically taught that same thing to us when we were very young and impressionable. And so that response that you want to have, whether it's to kind of yell at your kids or maybe throw something down, something like that, that is probably something that was kind of an ingrained response in you. So acknowledge that. Ask yourself, is this, thought or action or feeling mine? And if it's not, you can release it and get rid of it and start moving on in the right direction. So if the previous two methods don't work for you, if you are, if you try doing the, heart-centered breathing, or if you just try to kind of shut your eyes and just breathe in that moment and pause, if those two aren't working for you, remove yourself from the environment and come back when you've cooled down. That is the next best thing to do. I would say that's not something that I have to do very often anymore. It's something that I might have done more in the past, but I will either walk out of the room or walk outside. I like to go outside because there are all of, the positive benefits of being out in the sun and nature and all of the things that does to calm your body down. That's another place where your parasympathetic is engaged. So you can go outside and calm down and relax and come in and then have a rational talk with people, a reasonable talk rather than a screaming match or, yelling at your kids. That's lots of times when we tell our kids, go to your room and come back when you're calm. That's not necessarily telling them, go away. I want to hear from my kids when that, after things happen. But sometimes I know that they need to be removed from the environment or the trigger to have the ability to calm down. And so this is the same for adults. Sometimes you just need to step away for a minute, clear your head, calm yourself, and then come back to the situation and address it. Because whenever there's something going on, you don't want to let it go. You don't want to let things go or just bury things. If there actually is some kind of, turmoil or something that needs to be dealt with, you should, deal with it, but deal with it in a calm and reasonable manner and come at it with a loving heart. That's something else that I will tell parents to do. Sometimes, like when my kids are, not being, I don't want to say not being the nicest, but sometimes if they're being a little mouthy or whatever, what I try to do, I try to internally change my state of being. Even if I'm not doing the heart breathing, I'll put my hand on my heart and try to engage my heart and think about how much I love them and all of the positive things so that I can come at the situation from more of a heart-centered approach, because that will calm me down and it eventually will calm them down too and make them more amenable to talking things out and, or having a better attitude. So those are some tools you can take and use to try to handle overwhelming situations in the moment. And the more you use them, the more proficient you will be at calming yourself down and being able to, just diffuse situations quickly. I know that for me, I can now put my hand on my heart and I can almost instantaneously engage that heart-centeredness. And that's not something that I was able to do, even a year ago. I would have to actually really concentrate on it and use some of the prompts that I mentioned earlier, like think of somebody, somebody or something that you love a lot, and, compassion and caring, all of those things. When you're doing that, when you're doing the heart center breathing, that really does tune you into your heart. But now all I have to do is, like I said, stick my hand in that area and I feel all of the, the calming and the peacefulness that happens. So the more you do this, the more it's going to reinforce it and the easier it will be. And another just important nugget is, if your kids, like I said, are frazzled all around you, the calmer you can be and the more you can engage in this heart-centeredness, the more your kids are going to respond to that too. So that's very, that's just helpful because, as moms, we know that chaos comes with kids. So to conclude, the main points that I want you to take away are, that being a mom is an amazing, but it's an incredibly difficult job. We've all had days where we've hit our emotional ceiling and have acted in ways or reacted in ways that we're not proud of. But there are methods to help us control our response in the moment. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, remember you can just put your hand on your heart, breathe, or step away. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.